Hi, this is Jacqueline Eckern with Eating Disorder Hope and Addiction Hope. And today I have the honor of interviewing Brad Lamm, the author of QUIT VAPING. Brad is a very impressive and well-regarded interventionist. He is an author, a teacher, and is really known for helping people make life-enhancing changes. He's been featured on Dr. Phil, The Doctors, The Today Show, Dr. Oz Show, and many more. So with that, I'd like to introduce Brad.
Hey, Jacqueline.
Hey, it is great to have you here. So this is a really exciting book that you have put out with this vaping issue that has taken our country by storm. I know.
Yeah, I started writing it about 5 years ago thinking, oh, everybody loves to vape. You know, there were no negative headlines, honestly, at that time, but my sense was that my friends who still were addicted to nicotine and had switched from smoking to vaping, I was just curious who was behind the amazing marketing campaign. Really, I saw the rollout and it felt, it made my spidey sense tingle. And I just thought, you know, this is going to be my next book. I'm going to write about this. And, you know, I had written a book called Blueprint to Quit that became a direct-to-consumer program for Walmart employees years ago. So I've been looking at nicotine addiction and how it fires the brain for more than a decade. And it's something I'm passionate about because so many people that I care about in recovery continue to smoke. And now vape too. And, you know, I view it just like I view a person in recovery who has an eating disorder. I have been there and I've walked through it to get free from it. So it was probably both the curiosity of a person that had recovered from it, because I smoked for 20 years, but also just that sense that we were getting the wool pulled over our eyes, that it was not safe. I knew that it had not gone through any FDA testing process. I was curious about it, and the more I learned, the more I worried. I mean, you know a little bit about me. I am a worrier by nature. I am my mother's son, and that's like our middle name is worry. But it's probably part of what makes me a good interventionist, because, you know, I empathize in a way that's action oriented. So anyway, the book, I was finishing it last summer in August, and the headlines started to pop and people started to get sick and then die. And I thought, wow, this is an unusual moment that this is happening. Maybe this book will find a publisher, because at that time my agent thought it unlikely. And then, you know, when I was finishing it last fall, knowing it would come out April 7th, I thought, well, it's going to come out and hopefully it'll help a bunch of people. Little did I know that, or ever imagine, that this corona crisis would hit. And the best thing we can do as human beings is to equip ourselves the best we can with healthy lungs. And so it's more urgent than I had ever imagined it, and more necessary. So it feels like a God thing to me in a way. Like I don't necessarily mean like a God thing, like God made me write the book, but I think some things that we do are more divinely inspired. And on paper, this looked like a bad idea. My agent thought, nobody will buy that book. But anyway, I've been passionate about writing it, investigating big tobacco and big vape. And the results are a book I'm really proud of and very action oriented, that will help vapers wrap their head around the notion that they can quit, and also for parents to help their kids quit.
So what is the percentage of vapers in the country now?
Well, think on this. I'll say when I was a kid, I'm 53, so I was born in 66. Now, we were Quakers, so nobody in the Lamm family drank or smoked or cussed, really. Like, we would get our mouths washed out if we said darn, because that was slang, right? But 47% of America smoked back when I was a kid. Almost half the country smoked. And so soldiers came back from war in World War II, and the cigarette industry was really born then. It became much easier to make. Up until then, people largely were rolling them themselves. And this industry grew up where they were cheap, reliable, incredibly addictive, because it's nicotine that addicts more people on the planet than any other substance. And that grew this incredible sector that up until then, people were not smoking. People were smoking, but people weren't smoking. It was not a societal thing. And because it wasn't cheap and easy, honestly. And then as more people got hooked, the big, what then was the tobacco industry, I call big tobacco, but in its infancy, they did a great job of lining up healthcare providers to say, hey, this is safe. In fact, it's a yummy pastime. They use doctors and nurses in their advertisements, both on television and print media. And so this generation really grew up smoking, other than the Lambs. Like, if you were a Lamm and you smoked, it was a very dark day. So when I quit smoking about 15 years ago, smoking had dropped a lot. The rates of smokers had dropped a lot over the years. It was due to a few things. One, there was community pressure because it was costing states and the federal government so much that there was this public health push, really because of the cost of it. And so this thing that had been pushed and sold and hooked a generation of us as safe and sane smoking. 20 years after it really became commercialized, people started getting much higher rates of lung cancer and cardiovascular disease and bladder cancer and mouth cancer. And so the wake up started to occur where prohibition was, the TV ads went away. And then the restrictions on the sale to minors, was introduced. And finally, the big tobacco settlement occurred after CEOs of all the big tobacco companies appeared before a congressional hearing and lied. They all lied as they were asked. Senator, the senator would ask, sir, are you saying that tobacco is not addictive and cancer causing? And there are these grown men with MBAs, all white men who had made, a mint off of the misery and addiction of a generation that looked straight ahead under oath and lied. And soon after the tobacco settlement occurred, and then since the early 90s, rates have continued to drop. We couldn't smoke in bars, we couldn't smoke in restaurants. It became even more restrictive. You can't smoke outside. And so it continued to drop. And then finally, it was 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it was down in the high teens. And it was a remarkable moment. It was this great victory dance that occurred among many public health advocates, because the unbelievable had happened. It had dropped in incredible numbers, and people were harm reducing in great ways. Then this little thing called the e-cigarette was introduced. And so if you're a person like me who is in long-term recovery from meth and bulimia, just talking about nicotine, and I have not had it in 15 years. I've not had a cigarette in 15 years. I've not used nicotine replacement therapy. I have a bunch over here, medical nicotine, that I use with my patients. It makes my mouth water. And that is the amazing link that nicotine creates with a person's brain. And so the e-cigarette industry was born in China, and it was a tobacco exec over in China that thought, oh, I think I can make something that's a little healthier. And so that, what grew out of that was something that then big tobacco bought. And then that became the Juul, which is the most popular vaping device in America. It is 2.7 times faster and quicker and better and tastier than the first generation e-cigarettes, and that much faster than a traditional cigarette. So it is made to hook you. And the way that it was sold to our kids, it was made to hook a generation of Americans. So when I talk to principals and teachers over the last couple of years, while really getting into what was the finish line of the book, because I worked on it for so long, they were seeing incredible spikes in the numbers of teens who were vaping. And, you know, my alarm bells continued to go off. I started to see friends that had stopped smoking and moved to vaping start to get more and more trouble with their lungs, going for x-rays, having multiple bronchial infections every year. Things that were similar to COPD, but that weren't the same. And so my alarm continued to rise, and so here we are. You know, the best thing that we can do to protect ourselves in this corona epidemic is to have a set of lungs that we're taking care of. So I'm so grateful I don't vape or smoke today, that they're not under duress because of something I'm doing to them. But it sure is a good time to try to quit.
It really is. And so people are really seeking comfort right now in this isolation. And I know what our vices are can become even more appealing. So the timing of the book is really good in that light too. What can people find in this book that will help them quit vaping?
Well, you know, I wrote the book for a person who vapes and a person who loves a person who vapes. I tried to write the book both with my intervention hat on, but also the hat of a person who struggled for years and years, who used and inhaled nicotine with traditional cigarettes. And I thought, I won't be able to stop. This is just, you know, I quit meth, I quit alcohol, I'm in recovery from this eating disorder. But this thing, I cannot give this up. So I work to use real practical tools, but also evidence-based approaches, including replacement therapy, like these breathing exercises. I call them hand to mouth, that build lung strength, both on an inhale and an exhale. So that's part of it. It helps mimic the hand to mouth routine that is associated with vaping or smoking. And then I think maybe most importantly, at least for many people, will be the use of medical nicotine. Nicotine addiction is an addiction that has hooked more human beings on the planet than any other. Think of that. More than any other thing, except maybe our telephones, right? We're all deeply devoted or addicted to our phones. Nicotine, bar none. It's the number one. And so we're in an incredible company, but I want us to treat it like it's an addiction, because it is an addiction like no other. And so my use of medical nicotine, it looks like this. When you start your quit, you pick a quit date. That's step one. Ask friends and family for support. So you're gathering social support for this thing. I'm doing Facebook Live groups, starting with the release of the book, with Mackenzie Phillips, who I work with, to support and create some social structure and support around the quitting process. But I introduced medical nicotine, the gum, the patch, the lozenge. The thing that I think is the best is the nasal spray. You actually have to import from the UK. But I give it away like candy, because those things, if used while detoxing, will change your life. They will greatly increase the odds that you'll have a successful quit. The people around you will be happier, because you'll be less of a bear. Because why? Because you're treating it like a real addiction. You're treating the symptoms and cravings that come as symptoms of post-acute withdrawal syndrome. Because vaping is the perfect nicotine delivery device. And similarly, I think the lozenge and the nose spray used together are a great replacement for vaping, like a jewel. I think that that is a big tool that a lot of people may say, well, I've used the patch before and it didn't work for me. Well, we take it a day at a time over 28 days. And I really work with the reader to help motivate you, both giving you information that's, you know, real information. It's not bullshit. I didn't make it up. It's evidence-based. It's heartfelt and spirit-led. And then I think it's also the inspiration to say, hey, you know what? The cravings are going to be really hard because they're going to be running around your brain. And guess what? You know what your answer is when you get a craving? You either move through it and it passes, or you pick up the jewel and you start vaping again. You go back into the addiction. So I really treat it as something that we have to detox off of. And, you know, some people will never quit. And I'm a big supporter in harm reduction on this front. I have folks that I've worked with over the years that I have on medical nicotine for, I haven't worked with people this long, but I have clients that I put on medical nicotine for over a decade. Nicotine nose spray will not hurt you. It's saline solution with yummy nicotine. And it will not give you lung cancer. It will not cause cardiovascular disease. It will not give you mouth and throat cancer. And so if it's used either as a harm reduction tool ultimately and replacement therapy, great. But I really work with the reader to use it as a detox protocol, then moving through cravings, knowing that they will diminish over time and that they're gonna get through this.
Where can we get the book and when is it being released again?
Oh my gosh. Oh, can I just tell you something that happened really fun that was this morning?
Please.
So I woke up and I was so nervous because today was the first big hit that I was taping for next week. Because the book comes out, it's available in bookstores, online as an ebook, and also as an Audible book that I read on Tuesday. So April 7th, it goes live. But this morning, I had an interview with Deborah Roberts, who I have sort of a journalist crush on. She works at ABC News, works on Good Morning America and World News Tonight. And so I knew I had this interview with her this morning. I got up at 5 a.m., I did my hair, I got ready. And then because her husband is Al Roker, and in my previous life, I was a weatherman on television, and we had the same agent. So Deborah's husband was helping her with the shoot. So I was getting to talk with Al in between as we were setting up. I was in heaven. It totally made me so happy. And then my husband turned the air conditioning down to like 34 degrees, so I didn't sweat or anything. But I have to tell you, it was so exciting because this book has been in me for so long, and finally it's coming out. And you know, for people who suffer with eating disorders, as well as, you know, anxiety and depression, like so many of us have in our lives, nicotine has been a great tool. And it can either be a tool that you move through and get off of, or if you continue to vape, it will injure your lungs and hurt you. So my hope and my prayer actually is that it will help many get better and equip them for a better life, not only for the rest of their life, but right now in this moment to get through this, because it is an unparalleled moment in which we find ourselves. So that's my hope.
And what is the website where they can learn more about the book and you?
Oh, it's super easy. It is QUITVapingBook.com. QUITVapingBook.com. And you can order the book there through a bunch of online sellers, as well as online for audio, the Audible book and ebook. And then there's also some tools and tips there, and it links back to the Facebook page where we're having some groups. So you'll find yourself good and supported. And what's the worst that can happen? You give it a go, you know. But that's my inspiration, is that we've all got through rough spots, and we are incredibly sturdy and resilient people. And I hope it helps a lot of people. But thank you for shining the light on it. I really appreciate you and Baxter and the work that you do.
Oh, Brad, thank you very much. We will also be featuring the book on Addiction Hope, and we'll link through to your site so people can find it there. We wish you well and much success with the book, Brad.
Thanks. It sure is good to see you.
Good to see you.